Alright, welcome back to my boss build series. This is my Grandmaster version for this week's Heist Battlegrounds Europa Nightfall. In this video, I'm going to be showing you the new Song of Your Ute legendary machine gun from Crota's End, which is the first raid weapon I've crafted this season, and I kind of spoiled myself and saw the leaks a little bit even before the raid came out, I think, and I knew that there was going to be an arc machine gun adaptive frame and I was going to be all about it. So I saved up my deep sight harmonizers from last season, because last season I didn't have to use a single one of them, and I used those for any drops I can get of this machine gun. So I have about 9 clears on Crota's, just doing kind of like my 3 weekly runs, one on each character, and I've managed to luckily get just a couple red borders from the raid, and then I had a couple of non-red or red border drops, so I was able to use my deep sight harmonizers on those to have all my 5 patterns. So I made a community post about this a couple days ago for the role that I made. This is going to be kind of my main workhorse Song of Your Ute. I do plan on crafting at least one more, possibly 2, possibly 3, because there are a lot of good roles on this thing. And basically my goal was to kind of have it fit the role of Commemoration, which has been my go-to machine gun. I think it's my highest level crafted weapon out of all of them. It even beats out Osteostriga if you want to include exotic craftable weapons. But yeah, my Commemoration with Reconstruction and Killing Tally is just, it's good for ad clear. So that's just kind of how machine guns are designed. That's what they're good for, killing lots of enemies. And then while you're doing so, you can have a way to get a damage buff. So like with Killing Tally ×3, I think you can get up to 33% damage. So you just kill 3 targets, now you got a lot of damage. You got a big buff that you can focus that towards like a champion or something. So on this Song of Your Ute, I put Sword Logic because this is a brand new perk. And it rolls from Crota's End weapons specifically, kind of like how Bait and Switch was original to Val the Disciple, and Reconstruction was native to Deepstone Crypt. So Sword Logic is kind of a raid perk for Crota's End, and this is a good perk because it basically gives you a static 15% buff. Any kill that you get, I believe, like just on a basic red bar, will give you Sword Logic ×1. So you can see I have a buff on the left side of my screen there, and it keeps refreshing every time I kill something. So the base damage buff is 15% from minor enemies, and then when you kill, it has 4 tiers. So if you kill, I think, an orange bar, you get tier 2. If you kill a champion, let's see in a second, I don't get the champion with my machine gun, but I think you get ×3 from killing majors or champions, so like yellow bars, and that is a 35% damage buff. So that is basically Killing Tally ×3. It is Bait and Switch. It is almost up to target lock level of damage. And then you can get up to 50%, I believe. Don't quote me on these numbers, I'm not 100% sure, but basically the highest tier damage buff that you can get on Sword Logic is from killing a boss, or a mini boss, I think, as well. That'll give you Sword Logic ×4, which is upwards of 50% extra damage, so that's like Golden Tricorn ×2. But the downside is, by the time you're done killing a boss, usually the mission's over. So it's not like, there are a few situations where you can kill a boss and then focus champions, like such as the Glassway, right? As you're making your way to the boss room in the Glassway, you fight a couple of mini bosses, fallen mini bosses, and then waves of champions. So that could be a situation where you can actually benefit from sword logic times 4, but you know, don't ever count on it. Just count on the fact that you're always going to have at least a frenzy style of damage buff at minimum, and then it just goes up from there, right? So you can get fairly easily. You can get on the levels of bait and switch and killing tally times 3. The other perk that I chose for this Song of Your Youth was Demolitionist, and I'm a huge fan of Demolitionist on machine guns, especially when I can roll with a damage perk such as Sword Logic. For all my grenade builds, it's just Demolitionist is so good. Even though on heavy weapons, Demolitionist doesn't give you as much grenade energy as a special weapon with Demolitionist, you still have to consider the fact that with a machine gun, you're killing so many enemies so fast that you can easily get your grenade back just by doing basic ad clear. And this also allows you, if you play into a demo machine gun correctly, you never have to reload it. So you don't have to pick different mag options or reload speed options when you're crafting this, right? So I just went full on into range, stability, and handling to get its stats as close to commemoration as possible at level 20, because when you craft a weapon to level 20, then it has, and masterwork, of course, it has the that is when it maxes out on its total stat package, right? So you get it to level 20, and then you get like a couple extra points in every stat. So the way it is right now, it's almost on the level of commemoration for range, stability, and handling, and it feels very similar. Commemoration still does feel just a little bit more stable and more accurate, but this is very, very close. Like I would say, it's like 95% commemoration. And then the rest of the weapon, its perk, its origin trait, Cursed Thrall, that more than makes up for it. The difference between this and commemoration. Because Cursed Thrall, like, all you gotta do is you get a melee kill, and then you've got a Cursed Thrall buff, which will show on the left side of your screen as long as there's not too many buffs. But basically, for a few seconds, any kills that you get with that weapon will create a arc explosion. So you can actually break arc shields from this explosion. You can benefit, I think, from surge mods on your legs for arc. Also, this week for the Grandmaster, it is Arc Surge and Strand Surge. So the arc machine gun is already going to be benefiting from arc in general, but also just saying, for other weapons from Crota's End that aren't arc, they actually are arc if you can proc Cursed Thrall and get those explosions going. So that's kind of a neat little intrinsic perk that all these raid weapons have, which kind of reminds me of like when Quicksilver Storm first came out, and it was supposedly bugged, that Bungie made it so that the homing rockets from Quicksilver Storm, like before there was a catalyst or anything, just when it was a kinetic assault rifle, it had the homing rockets did arc damage, so you can actually play into like the weekly burn for the Nightfall or whatever, and benefit from arc on Quicksilver Storm. Now it's fixed, of course. They removed that completely, and then they buffed the grenade damage, and then eventually they gave it a catalyst with lightfall that turns the weapon into strand. But that's neither here nor there. I'm talking about Song of Your Ute here, which is just it's a blast to use, getting so many grenades. And if you thought that a Bant Leaps build on Titan, on Berserker, was nerfed to the ground, think again. It definitely was not. I did a whole review of all the changes to Strand at the end of last season that were bound for this season. And pretty much my thoughts on all that from last season, knowing what they were going to do this season, and pretty much stand the way I thought it would, even after experimenting with this. Right, so Suspend got reduced from, I think, with Thread of Continuity. Now you can only get like 7-second Suspends on most enemies that are not champions, instead of 12 seconds. But realistically, 7 seconds is a long time to have enemies hanging up in the air. It is more than enough time to kill basically any enemy, including champions, especially if you're a fire team focusing a champion. But by the way, I should say, champions got their own special rule for Suspend, so that now they are only suspended for a base duration of 3 seconds without Thread of Continuity, and with Thread of Continuity they are suspended for, I think, 4 or 4.5 seconds. So not very long, but it is still enough to neutralize them. You can keep a barrier from putting their shield up. And so, yeah, Suspend it's been nerfed, but it doesn't really make a difference, not for this build, which I haven't even talked about the build yet because I've been going off about Song of Your Youth. And you notice there I just got the Monte Carlo Catalyst, so this is a pretty good RNG run. Obviously, I'm doing this Nightfall to farm Warden's Law, the Adept variant, but this is, you know, whatever if you're just farming this for Ascendant Shards or whatever, you can use this build. I would recommend that you do this if you are a Titan like me here. I would strongly recommend going with Strand over anything else. I tried doing an arc build, and mind you, I was pretty green, no pun intended, to this Nightfall, and I was not having a good time on arc, and nor were my teammates, especially on LFG, with everybody generally with no mic or no clue as to what's going on. It was just immediate deaths in this boss room if we made it that far. Now that it's been out for a couple days, people have developed some strategies, you know, go under the stairs, go on top of the stairs, go in the left corner of the room, whatever. People just tend to gravitate towards the under the stairs section. And so I wanted to do my typical Adept Leaps build from last couple seasons, because that is pretty much the best Grandmaster build, at least for farming Grandmasters. If you're going to be a Titan, you're already at kind of a disadvantage compared to Well-Locks and Invis Hunters for GMs. That's just the way it is. But if you are going to be a Titan, you pretty much have the best Suspend class and support role with Strand, being able to suspend everything, give your teammates Woven Mail, give yourself Woven Mail, sever enemies so that they do less damage to you, which, you know, therefore increases your damage resistance. So Strand is just, in general, very strong in Grandmasters still. I'm actually using the new aspect here, Banner of War, which I haven't had a chance to talk about this season. This is only my second video of the season, but I've been having a lot of fun on Banner of War. And there are a number of different builds that you can actually come up with for Banner of War. You can come up with a glaive build, you can come up with a sword build, you can come up with a pure melee build, and you can come up with just a general support build like what I'm doing here for Grandmaster. Okay, so and this means that you can use different combinations of fragments and aspects depending on what you want to do with Banner of War. So for me here, keeping in mind that Adept Leaps Titan builds previous to this season would be using Into the Fray with Drinder's Lash, because basically that's the only two fragments that you have. Even when Flechette Storm came out, that's nothing compared to, like, it has no place really in the build, in this style of build. Into the Fray is very good because when you destroy a Tangle or throw your Tangle at your teammates, it creates that, it emits woven, like a woven mail dome, right? Bubble. So you can give yourself and your teammates woven mail just from your tangles, which is very good. It also, I think, heals you for a small amount, and it increases your melee recharge rate. So that's into the fray. And I think it also, when you get woven mail, your teammates get woven mail. Whether that's from your tangle or not, I'm not too sure. But either way, into the fray is very strong. And Banner of War likewise plays a support role, in the sense that anybody that's inside my green radius is going to be healing at a rate relative to the stacks of Banner of War that I have. So as you can see right now, I have Banner of War times 3. The timer gets refreshed on kills, and the stacks go up depending on number of kills, I believe. I'm not too sure on the fine details there, but basically the more stuff you kill, the more stacks of Banner of War that you get. But you have to start your Banner of War loop. You have to get Banner of War procced in the first place. You don't just do that by killing. You have to get a melee kill specifically, or a sword kill, to get Banner of War up and running on a base timer at 1 stack. From there, you can use any weapons to refresh the timer and increase your stacks of Banner of War. Okay? So that's free healing for you and all your teammates. It is more melee damage. Like, I think for your base melee damage, it goes up by a substantial number. It's almost like Syntheseps, right? So that's why, like, Syntheseps has its own build entirely for Banner of War with Into the Fray. Like, not just using glaives, I mean just using your Frenzied Blade melee. Like, you do insane damage, especially when you combine that with, like, Tractor Cannon and 1-2 Punch and Grapple Melees. So, I'm aware that these builds exist. This is not the build that I'm going for here. I'm using Banner of War as a kind of mobile Well of Radiance light, right? So, it's a support role for my teammates primarily, and myself. And I could have gone with Into the Fray instead, but I think healing is a little bit more valuable than giving my teammates woven mail all the time, especially when we've got an Invis Hunter and a Well of Radiance Warlock. They're both self-sufficient builds or subclasses. They don't need my woven mail in order to survive this GM. If we are going to succeed at this GM as a team, then chances are, you know, everybody that's in there, they don't need to crutch on woven mail. Right? I need to crutch on woven mail because I'm a Titan, and it's just kind of the gameplay of Strand Titan. So with that said, I'm just showing, this is the second run of the boss arena. I haven't even talked about this, but basically if you play under these stairs, you can kind of control everything. And Abeyant Leaps with your Drenger's Lash is just kind of like, it's almost like this build was made for under this staircase, because there's only 2 ways that you can get into this staircase, and I can block off one side completely with a barricade that is going to emit 3 lashes from it that's going to suspend everything that tries to get in here. If anything does make it in here, then I'm meleeing them and getting Banner of War procced. And then I can throw throw shackle grenades at the other side. All the meanwhile reloading my Demolitionist machine gun and slaying out. So my role here was not to really do boss damage, it was to control the underside of the stairs along with the well lock, so that they can damage the boss and I can control everything that was coming in. Some of the mods I'm using here, no surge mods because I'm using all different weapons. Solar because there's lots of solar wizards. Arc because there's lots of Arc Knights, and Song of Your Ute is taking care of that. My bow, Strident Whistle, has shoot to loot, so that I can pick up orbs with shoot to loot and explosive payload. And obviously bows break barrier shields as well this season, so that's kind of fitting there. Osteostriga is just kind of like my backup machine gun, basically, for close quarters. If I'm running low on heavy, I can use Osteo. All this tick damage from the machine gun and Osteo is going to keep threat of generation going, and so it's going to feed me lots of grenades. Anyways, I'll leave dim links. There's the few rolls that I've got so far, just with 3 completions, 1 previously on my Night Stalker. Anyways, hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.